Hi guys, and welcome to Ancestral Recall. I'm your host, Eli Kaplan. This show examines the history of Magic the Gathering, set by set. We look at the lore, mechanics, the standout cards of Standard and Limited, and explain the contributions to the game that each set makes. This week, we're examining the highly controversial set Champions of Kamigawa, released in fall of 2004. This set was commonly panned by many players for its weakness in comparison to sets around it, but there are numerous, passionate, outspoken enthusiasts of the set and block that challenge the conventional wisdom. And yes, I am one of those enthusiasts.
Setting!
Kamigawa is a plane loosely based on the Sengoku era of Japan. The technology of castle building, weaponry, and armor is equivalent to that, though Kamigawa also has a massive influx of spiritual communities well beyond that of Japan. The dominant tribe of the plane is humans, though there are numerous non-human communities as well. All races nobility are ranked as samurai, those who possess the right to bear two blades. Almost all samurai are bound by fealty to their master, as well as a drive to preserve and enhance the honor of their clan. Samurai are expected to master the brush of calligraphy, courtly manners, and other social arts, as well as battle prowess. Those who have failed, dishonor themselves, or choose to reject the social order are branded ronin, wave people. The wave people travel from house to house, offering their services for wages, mere wages. Their paymasters are obliged to mock and disregard them, but secretly they crave the ronin's martial skills. The humans are divided into noble houses, each with their own domain, ruling over vast numbers of peasants. But not all humans are white aligned. Many monks choose to escape society and meditate in harmony in the woods. The Minamo school of mages similarly study in isolation, seeking understanding through secrets. Bandits who prey upon villages hide within the crevasses and ridges of the mountains. As for the humanoids, the kitsune, fox humanoids, embody cunning, cleverness, and familial loyalty, and the skill of their samurai surpass those of the hardy humans who have to compete with brute force. Kitsune are divided into a warrior and priestly caste, and all of them love to vex their human neighbors despite being allies. The moonfolk disregard the laws of gravity as well as the will of the petty daimyo. The Aki, Kamigawa's goblins, are beings of flesh commingled with rock, and they're also troublemakers. More on them later. The Nezumi skulk in the shadows, but most of them are not ninjas. The Orochi, snake folk, dwell in the wilds and the forests. And then there's the other major group dwelling on the plane, the Kami. Kami are spirits. Though the more literal translation is gods, Kami can be incarnated from emotions, natural sights, works of art, and anything else that's born of life. There are even Kami that embody the five colors of mana themselves. Spirits are essentially eternal, dying and regrowing, unless the element they represent is completely obliterated. The Kami of Old Stone represents ancient towers, roads, and rubble that wildlife and sentients deal with on a daily basis. All the species live in a symbiotic, harmonious relationship with most of the spirits, with a few exceptions. Black and red mana energies coruscate into the Oni, demons that embody chaos, trickery, and betrayal. Oni are not worshipped, but rather appeased by Kamigawa's ogres. Many of the spells and incantations used by Kamigawa spellcasters draw on the power of spirits as well. And on the whole, for generations, Kamigawa has been in harmony. But recently, the Kami went on a rampage, first destroying the village of Reito, then sweeping through the forests and slaughtering many monks. Only the hardiest loners survived. The Emperor Konda's domain of Eiganjo is the only one untouched, the Eye in the center of the storm. How can he and his charges survive? The novel for the set follows Toshiro Umezawa, a cunning, improvising sellsword who can manipulate paper and ink to defeat his enemies. He follows in the wake of Princess Michiko Konda, who is being desperately pursued by the Kami. Why are they so determined to apprehend her? This is a mystery that we're not going to find the answer to quite yet. Just to be clear, Kamigawa is a plane in chaos. Human warriors went forth to defend villagers from the Kami onslaught, but the spirits of their armor and weapons turned against them. How could humans fight against the entire plane? Players look at Zendikar with the Eldrazi, or New Phyrexia and the Phyrexian Uprising, and see a hopeless struggle for the protagonists. Kamigawa is far more beautiful to look at, so it seems more tranquil, but the plane harbors the same kind of epic peril. By the way, Japanese don't use suffixes to note plurals, so the plural of samurai is samurai. The plural of kami is kami. The plural of ninja is complete and utter devastation, but grammatically it's ninja. Sorry, I do work with language for a living. I don't want to cover every single element of Kamigawa's mythos and development here and now, because I want to save some goodies for later on. One thing I will say right now is that the original name for the setting was Inreikai, which meant Shadow Spirit Force. The Japanese staffers on Wizards' creative team loved the name, but the Americans said that it was a bit too hard to pronounce for Western tongues, and so Inreikai became Kamigawa, River of Spirits. This didn't go over too well in Japan. Oh well. Mechanics. Champions of Kamigawa features a number of new and returning keywords. The first new keyword is Vigilance, an ability that first appeared on Sarah Angel back in ABU. Whenever this creature attacks, it does not tap. Vigilance is an evergreen ability and is now used in almost every set, but Champs was the first set to use the new term. Another returning keyword is Indestructible. While Indestructible showed up 2 sets previously with Darksteel, this was the first time colored cards got the keyword. 6 cards got Indestructibility, the 5 Myojin and Konda. Now the 5 Myojin are embodiments of the 5 colors of mana, each coming into play with a divinity counter if properly played from your hand. So tricks like Elvish Piper, Quicksilver Amulet, and Eureka won't let this creature come into play with the counter. But when a Myojin has divinity, it is indestructible. But its controller can choose to have the Myojin yield its divine power and produce a dramatic effect, such as destroying all other creatures in play, or drawing insane numbers of cards, or forcing each opponent to discard their hand, or destroying all lands, yuck, or dumping any number of creature cards from your hand into play. Okay, as usual, the green one sucks. The only creature guaranteed to have indestructibility is Konda, Lord of Eiganjo. As for why he, a mere human, has indestructibility, that will also be revealed in the future. One of the key themes of Kamigawa is that its war is epic in scope. And how do we raise the stakes to tell a saga? Well, Wizards made all the rare creatures legendary. So we have legendary snakes, fox clerics, samurai, spirits, demons, and yes, legendary dogs. And the legendary dog was good. There were legendary artifacts and enchantments, and there were even legends at uncommon. This block is also where Wizards implemented the second version of its legend rule, where a player could destroy an enemy legend by playing a copy of their own. And if a second copy of a named legend hit the table, both died as a state-based effect. This gameplay change came after Pro Tour winner Osip Libodovic won the high trophy with Akroma, Angel of Wrath, during Onslaught block, noting to the designers that he won games because his opponents were just shut out of playing creatures thanks to the old version, where the newer copy got buried while the original got to stick around. The change to the Legends rule helped players avoid some frustrating game states. In 2014, the rules got changed to the current state of affairs, where each player is allowed to control a single copy of a legendary permanent and can bury one of them if a second hits the table. But the Kamigawa legend rule stuck around for a decade. Let's go back to Konda, Lord of Eiganjo, for a second. He features Vigilance, Indestructible, and the new keyword on the block, Bushido. Bushido, the Way of the Warrior, is a simple and fairly elegant combat mechanic giving a creature +X/+X whenever it blocks or is blocked. This ability first saw print on an innocuous creature from Legends, the Chubtoad. Chubtoad, Chubtoad, knocking on the door. Run away quick, or you'll run no more. Chubtoad was overpriced by modern standards, where we just get 3/3s for 3 mana at common in green, but his combat ability was easy to play with and against. Wizards tried a far more complex variant in Mirage Block, flanking, which represented mounted riders on horse outmaneuvering enemies, giving blockers a -1/-1 when it attacked, unless the blocker had flanking. Flanking was far too unruly and complex a combat mechanic. Bushido didn't mess with enemy creatures, it just made your guys bigger. Bushido only appeared on this set's Samurai. Fortunately, Samurai appeared in numerous races and almost every color in the block, with the exception of blue. I guess blue was too busy reading or doing homework to engage in honorable combat. Other tribes had distinct abilities. The Kashi tribe of snakefolk had lethargy-inducing claws and envenomed arrows and blades. If a creature was dealt damage by a snake warrior, then it became tapped and failed to untap on its controller's next untap step. The Soratami, moonfolk, could change a land's type, play a mana leak, bounce creatures, or copy spells at the cost of returning its controller's lands to their hand. These flyers were particularly wily. The ogres gained bonuses when their controllers also mastered the demon, or negated the drawback that the demon would incur. The onslaught of the kami was brutal, testing many to their very limits and beyond. Answering the call of obligation to defend their lands brought individuals to realize new powers and abilities, and these were reflected in the flip cards. Flip cards were the first attempt in Magic at transformation, where a non-legendary creature would transform into a legendary hero. The powerful Dokai, weaver of life and master of channeling the power of the lands himself, started off as a humble gardener. A modest domestic guardian and Orochi egg watcher became Shidako, the brood mistress, who taught the tribe to exert great power in giving each other their strength, thus preserving it for the future. By sifting through the remains of the battlefield, a lowly Nezumi grave robber would unlock the power of bringing back the dead, becoming known as Night Eyes, the Desecrator. And ladies and gentlemen, yes, that name is metal. The flip mechanic added a game to the game itself, though it had quite a few negatives. The compartmentalized art caused confusion. The mechanic made bounce that much stronger, and newer players didn't get flip mechanics. But this mechanic was the clear predecessor to Innistrada's double-sided transform cards, though the transform cards had the potential to revert to their earlier forms. All these traits and powers were marshaled against the kami, the energies of the plane itself, but the kami were hardly underprepared. In fact, their mechanics were just as powerful as their corporeal counterparts. Many kami possessed soul shift, a keyword that allowed the player to return a spirit from their graveyard to their hand, reflecting the fact that kami were not easily destroyed. If their initial form was destroyed, their essence would merely reincarnate somewhere else. The mountain spiritualist Kumano devised a method of completely annihilating kami essence by exiling them instead if they died, but this method was not replicable by the other factions. Soul Shift was an extremely powerful limited mechanic, giving spirit players an opportunity to constantly use their mana every turn to reincarnate their forces. The kami also wielded their own powerful instants and sorceries, which bore the Arcane subtype. Arcane in itself is not particularly important or impressive, but these spells triggered Spiritcraft, a triggered ability on numerous spirits that happened every time a player casts a spirit or arcane spell. Most of these Spiritcraft triggers were minor, a 1-point ping or giving a creature +1/+1, but these effects added up for incremental advantage. Like the NFL, Kamigawa Limited was a game of inches, and the best players used Spiritcraft triggers to eke out an edge and squeeze just a bit more efficiency out against their opponents. Sire of the Storm was my personal favorite Spiritcrafter because I love drawing cards, but please note that Spiritcraft was not a word that appeared on the cards, but a term used on the Mothership's articles about the set. The lack of clarity led Wizards to experiments later on with ability words and saviors of Kamigawa, such as Channel and Sweep. Arcane spells didn't just trigger Spiritcraft, however. Many of these spells had the keyword Splice onto Arcane. Splice is an ability that can be used by paying an additional mana cost and revealing the Splice card from your hand when playing an Arcane spell. The text of the spell being played gets additional texts from the splice card tacked on. So if you have a Glacial Ray in hand and reveal it when you play another Glacial Ray, you pay 2 RR and have the first Glacial Ray deal 2 damage to one target creature or player and 2 damage to another target creature or player. And in fact, you can even aim the second Glacial Ray line at the same first creature. On the next turn, you might use Splice onto Arcane to play Wear Away on an enchantment with that revealed Glacial Ray, naturalizing and tacking on 2 damage. And there were no limits to the number of spells you could splice, though you could only splice a revealed card once on its host. Splice onto Arcane was too expensive to be used in Standard, but was a powerful mechanic in Limited. Splice rewarded patient players and created brutal blowouts on the table. So that's Champions of Kamigawa in a nutshell. I didn't spend a lot of time today looking at individual cards, but rather sought to give you the big picture. Kamigawa is a very personal set for me, since this was the set where I demonstrated the most prowess, qualifying for both Limited Pro Tours that showcased it. So if I spend a lot of time talking about the limited gameplay, well, that's just a natural product of my bias. But I'll also be giving some great recommendations for Cube, EDH, and other formats next time, so please stay tuned. And be sure to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. This is Eli Kaplan for Ancestral Recall, signing off. Good games and good luck.